Hi there, I'm Kylie Mowbray-Allen from Hello Media.
And I'm Jenni Walke from Elephant in the Room Consulting, and you're tuning into Bite-Sized Business Life Podcast, the show that helps business owners get clarity and insight to grow their dream business.
Whether you're launching, ready to scale, or figuring out what's next, we discuss the nitty-gritty, the hard bits, the opportunities, and the behind the scenes, and share how we've grown our own companies and helped others do the same.
We're glad you're here. Hi there, everyone. This is Jenni Walke from Elephant in the Room Consulting and Kylie Mowbray-Allen from Hello Media, and you're tuning into Bite-Sized Business Live Podcast, the show that helps small business owners get clarity and insight to grow their dream business. How are you today, Kylie? It's the first week of February, brother.
Yeah. I know. We're 1/12 in already. It's full on, isn't it?
It has been ridiculous. Every client I'm speaking to is going, what is happening in the world? How did we get to this space so quickly? The last month has gone so quickly, it seems.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm
Yeah. And let's finish the first month with one of the worst heat waves that we've ever experienced in North Queensland and Southeast Queensland and Northern New South Wales. It has been insane this week, and I think it's making us all a little crazy.
It's 36 degrees down here in Bangalore, and my brain is feeling fried. I've got my aircon on, but it clearly hasn't been going enough because it's just, yeah, it's definitely tricky. Someone said to me the other day their kid got sent home from school because it was too hot to learn. I was like, I like that.
I like that. I remember back in the day when I was at school, like if it got to 35 degrees, they would send you home because it was like, but this is, we're talking 45 years ago, or 40 years ago when, you maybe didn't have as good air conditioning, but they used to always send us home. But unfortunately, if as a small business owners, we can't just, go home.
No, we cannot. It is a lot. And my mistake, I think, was going to the gym this morning. It was just a little, I think you should have a day off when it gets to 35 degrees from exercise.
We went this morning too, and because we're the first class, I mean, I know yours is way worse than us in a tin shed, but we have a great studio, but the air conditioning only comes on 10 minutes before we start, and the class was so full this morning. So I'm pretty sure those air conditioners was not able to cool anything down for the first 40 minutes of that class. It was insane.
Oh, it is super, super shocking. But the beginning of this year is really full on because I'm back to social media marketing world next month. And so that's super exciting, off to San Diego after 2 years of doing it online. So I'm really pumped about that. And it feels like it's just come around really, really fast. So it's exciting times.
And I forget that. I always used to think it was like May, but no, it's March that you go to social media marketing world. And I'm so jealous because San Diego is one of my favorite places in the world, notwithstanding the fact that it'll be an amazing conference. And I can just imagine the conversations that you're going to have around what's happening and what's new. And I know we're talking a little bit about that next week in our session next week about some of those things that are really going to kickstart your social media marketing for digital marketing, for this year.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. And Jenni, it's Social Media Examiner's 10th birthday. So that's super, super exciting. Well, sorry, Social Media Marketing World's 10th birthday. So that's cool. They've got lots of things planned and big celebration parties and all sorts. So it's going to make it even better than usual. So I'm pretty pumped.
That is awesome. I'm excited. And it's something to look forward to, isn't it? I mean, when you have something like that is going to really spark your brain and spark your kind of, your motivation and your insight and just wonder around what's coming. It's something like that, particularly when you're working all the time in your own business, on your own business, even with your team, having those people, having that kind of inspiration is so amazing and something to look forward to.
Absolutely. I cannot wait for sure. So Jenni, I'm really pumped about our topic today with talking about business structure and what's right for you and all of that. So we were just talking earlier before we went live about the different ways that people look at it. And it's a very interesting topic, isn't it? Because I've seen a few posts out there lately about where do you want to go in your business. And one particular one I just looked at was somebody had asked, are you a hobby or are you a business? And people in the comments were saying, well, you're only a business once you become a company structure and all of that. And I was like, hang on a second, there's many of us, especially in those early days, where it's 100% our business. We're putting every bit of energy into it, that what we're doing. And I would never want to call that a hobby. I think a hobby is, making, if you go to a pottery class on the weekend, that might be your hobby. If that's not what you want to do as a business, or going to a dance class, that'd be your hobby.
It's a really, really good question, though. And funny when you talk about hobby. So the term hobby business really came about because of the tax department, to be perfectly honest, because they allow you to earn enough or some money every year. And I think the number, don't quote me, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a lawyer, so this is just general conversation. Please remember that. So if you do have any advice, if you want to explore anything we're talking about, make sure you go see your accountant or have a chat to your legal professionals. But in terms of ATO decides that you can have a certain amount of income a year as a hobby that you don't have to declare. Really great example is Tupperware. A lot of people sell Tupperware. I used to be a Tupperware dealer. And so I sell Tupperware and I can earn money from Tupperware. And it's considered a hobby until it gets to around, I think it's $75,000 at the moment. So I can have a revenue of $75,000 and it's considered a hobby business. So that's where that term hobby business came from.
Well, I don't like it.
And I
ATO.
But the way that I define it, if you're talking about a hobby business, what we're saying is it's something that you play with. It's something that you drop in and out of. It's not something that you do necessarily consistency. Now, I know with a lot of Tupperware dealers, that is 100% not true, and they're in it every single week, and they're really trying to drive that business and build it into a their full-time business. But generally, the idea of a hobby is, imagine somebody who goes, well, I'm going to make some macrame plant hangers, and I'm going to sell it at the market, and I might do that 4 times a year. That's somebody who's turning their hobby into an income source. But it's not this, but it's still a form of business. But the hobby concept is about something that you just pop in and out, you do it when you feel like it, right? You're not really focused on what your customers necessarily need. It's generally around, I feel like doing this, so I'm going to do it. And if I don't feel like doing it, I won't. So really, it's a kind of more relaxed version of a business, if you like.
I agree. And I think you said that really well around that macrame thing. And you did right. You're doing something that, in my mind, or my opinion, the hobby business is when you are doing something that you think is really fun and is literally your hobby pastime thing to do. And then you say, I wonder if I could monetize this. And you try and do a couple of markets. And then you sell some to friends. And then you think, maybe I'll set up a website or something. So that to me is when we're going from hobby into hobby business. So yeah, it's interesting about the 75,000 thing. I'm like,
yeah, and that's only also bear in mind when you do that, you can't claim expenses. It's just basically, there's no profit and loss. It's just you have to, there's no kind of, you can't claim GST, you can't claim expenses, all those sort of other things that the value. So this is when we talk about business. And so there are lots of different types of business. And that idea about you owning a business, if you're a PTY Ltd, is bollocks, because there are so many sole traders out there that are classified as a business. The ATO classes you, if you have an ABN, then you are a sole trader. If you register for GST, which you have to over $75,000, then you become a business. The ATO recognizes you as a business as soon as you have an Australian business number. So really the definition of a business is somebody who is operating and doing things that relate to in the process of making a business. So that could be as a sole trader, doing your macrame, but it's every single weekend. And all of a sudden, we're starting to actually make a regular income. And we can start claiming our expenses, and we start, claiming GST if we get to that threshold. And we start to be consistent about what we do, then you're a fully going concern business, right? So I think there's lots of different definitions, but there's a whole conversation that's happening. And I know we do this when we do our Business Owners Mastermind. It's one of the key aspects that we do in our 3-day mastermind is around what type of business that you want and how do you want to structure your business. Because I remember when I started, people were like, oh, you can't be a company unless you have staff. You can't run a business unless you do this. And there's all these kind of myths and kind of legends around what business was. And I was like, this just doesn't make sense to me. Let's just strip it back, right? And I think that's where we have to kind of demystify. So that's kind of what we want to do today.
And we were talking earlier before we came on live about that whole piece around the transformation from operator to owner. And yet owner, they say, is seen as when you're employing people, and otherwise you're an operator. I'm like, well, you and I both employ people, yet we're still very, very much the operators. We're still very much in the trenches.
Yeah, agreed.
It's interesting. So I really like the what do you want to say, the analogy or whatever that you use with those three different pieces. And I think for most people, it's very, very clear. So do you want to share about that?
Yeah, well, I actually think there's a third level. It's not just owner and operator. So when we first start our business, we're also an employee. So if you think about what an employee does, they deliver the product, they run the operations, they do the day-to-day stuff in a business. When you're first starting your business as a coach, as a a bead maker, as an earring maker, whatever it is you're making, you're actually doing that work. So I'm actually going to be an employee because I need somebody to deliver the work. I'm also the operator because I'm managing the processes and I'm managing my supply chain and I'm managing my production and my customer experience, but I'm also the owner. So I'm also having a look at thinking about where do I want to go for my business? What does that look like? So there's actually three levels: an employee, an operator, and then the owner. And
I like it, sorry, but I like it when we talk about it as the employee, the manager, and the CEO. I'm like, yes, giving yourself a title. Where do you want to head with those? I think that's a great one.
And that's the structure piece, right? So when we start to talk about what business structure you want, there's a couple of ways we can do that. And one of the ones that I love to do is you write down all the things that you need to do in the business and give them a title. Give them a name. If it's, so it might be production assistant, might be, social media, finance, whatever it is, that you actually create the structure of your desired business and write that out and map that out early. And then you actually allocate which jobs you actually want to do and which jobs you want to give to someone else. So you've actually just shifted yourself from being the person who does everything, the employee, into the manager / operator, but into that manager, how do things work? And over time, as your business grows, as you scale, as your operations become more effective, you can actually then step out into that CEO role. And what does the CEO do of organizations? They are the people who create engagement. They're the people who build trust. They're the people who create partnerships. They're the people who actually look at synergies outside the business and say, how do we grow the business? So when we're doing that activity at the CEO level, I only have one role. I'm the CEO. As a manager, I might have many. And as an employee, you're probably doing them all.
I think of the CEO as the big picture person that can sit back and have that opportunity to look at. So it's very much about working on it rather than in it, that kind of a thing. So I think it's a luxury position, really, because you're not there. I was talking with a friend last night who said she's got this incredible position in the company, but yet she's still doing these little things that take up so much time because there's no one else to be passing it to. She needs 2 assistants and they're not giving her any. So it was really interesting to hear that piece. I'm like, when you look at what that company's paying you, excuse me, it's not good use of resources, is it?
No. And that's a real, I love that segue into resources, because that's really what we're talking about. Transitioning into a business is about finding the right resources and systems and processes to support you grow. That's why coaches go scale their coaching programs. That's why coaches go online and deliver online modules, because then once they, build their courses, they're not needed in the business anymore. Really, they can be the CEO doing the big picture, doing the synergies and having that, top level view, because the program just runs itself as an online module. So that's the ideal way. But then you might have staff who manage your customer experience, who make sure the systems work, who do your onboarding calls, all those things for you, because you're not needed anymore. But there are very few businesses that I know and that I engage with, whether social media like yours, myself as a coach or a consultant, we do this work because we kind of love it, right?
Yes,
so exactly. It fills our cup to stand in front of a room and facilitate, or to train people, or to watch people grow. So there's an element of us that we're always going to be that manager employee. And I think it's about changing the stigma and the mindset around that in your business. It's not a bad thing to be the operator. It actually isn't a bad thing, but it's about what is your long-term succession? How do you want the business to grow? And do you want it to be there when you're not? If you want the business to continue in the absence of you, whether that's because you want to go and, travel the world for 6 months a year, or you want to go and babysit your grandkids, whatever it might be, then if you want to be that, then you need to get your mindset to say, well, how do I become that? How do I let go of those positions? How do I actually start removing myself from the business that allows me then to just look at, sit in my office and oversee things and not deliver things? And that's a mindset shift.
Totally. How many times do you hear people say, though, actually, though, nobody could do it the way I do it, or nobody could do it as well as I do it, or nobody could blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, yes, probably someone could. It's just a case of finding the right person. So I personally, for me, I like the whole training up of someone rather than going out there and finding someone that could do it, because then I know they're going to do it my way rather than the way that they've been trained. What do you think about that?
I think that's 100% correct. But also it's that recognition that even when you train them up, they're not going to do it your way. They're going to do their version of your way.
Absolutely.
And so that requires a shift in your mindset to say, it's okay to let go. It's okay that it's not done by me. And look, I'm in that position now. We want to grow. We're in a position where we're starting to really, get some really amazing contracts and starting to grow the business. That makes me have to say, okay, what is it that I don't need to do? What is the things that I want to do versus the things that I need to do? And that's the big question, and letting go and having that conversation. The coaches that I train and that I'm with keep having this conversation with me, and I'm getting there because I just love the work, right? I love doing the work. So my shift from operator into full owner full time isn't about skill, isn't about revenue. It's really about me deciding, when do I no longer want to do delivery and I actually want to step out. And so knowing that and saying I want that in 3 years' time gives me a 3-year runway to train someone up, to set in the systems in place, whatever it might be. So this is when we're talking business structure. A structure of a business is not one that someone has given you. It's one that you create that works for you and your business now and how you want your business to look in the future.
Absolutely. And you know what? Maybe you always want to stay as an employee in your business. Yeah. Maybe you love it that much that that's your plan and you never want to be the CEO. Or what about maybe you want to be a bit employee, a bit manager, and a bit CEO. So for example, I was a bit full CEO in the second week of my holidays because my team had come back to work and I had not. I was like, yeah, I'm loving it. Now, probably going on more than a week past that would have not really worked out, but for a whole week I was the CEO. It was very exciting. Then boom, next week I'm straight in as an employee again. Yeah. But I'm also always a bit of a manager. So, I think you don't have to fit yourself in that box of what stage you're up to.
Agreed. And also, if you think about people, particularly artisans, you imagine an artist. An artist is always going to deliver the artwork. Their business, his or her business is their art. A jewelry maker. They might have an apprentice, but there'll be people who want them to create that masterpiece for them. They'll want them to be the one, and particularly when it comes to artwork, they'll spend a week creating beautiful art, but then they might spend a month being the owner who's actually going out and creating synergies and partnerships. And I think of look at any of the linen brands who are partnering with artists to produce artwork for their linen and their bed. Gorman is another great example of where they go to artists and say, we want to source artwork for our amazing clothes. So what they're doing is they're going to find, and so the artist needs to step out of being the artist into the owner, to look at those synergies, to look at those strategies and say, well, how are we going to grow the business? How do I increase my influence as an artist? How do I get those, sculptures or those pieces of commission work? That's not being the artist. That's actually putting your head up and saying, I'm here and growing. And that's becoming an owner operator.
Absolutely, isn't it? I was chatting with an artist the other day and we were talking about how are you actually going to monetize this? And she's like, I've got no idea, because nobody will buy my art till I'm dead and famous there. So what am I going to do now? We went through a huge number of ways that you could actually monetize from it. And the excitement in her face was just extraordinary. So, but again, it will always involve her producing it in the first place. And then what comes next is other people can be involved in. So yeah, she's always going to stay those 3 levels. So.
And I think the key piece around when you're saying, what is the business structure right for me? The question you want to say is, what do you want to do in the business now, and in 2 years' time, and in 5 years' time, and have a think about what that looks like, and in 10 years' time. Where do you see yourself in that? Why did you start business though? So to know that, you need to, well, why did I start this business? If I started this business because, well, I realized I didn't fit into anyone else's box and I needed to fit in, create my own sandpit to play in. So I did. And so, and I love playing in my own sandpit. I love being able to, you know, change the rules and do what I want to do and show up how I want to show up without the restrictions of other people. Now, I do that when I have that mindset. That's an owner, right? This is my sandpit. But I also have to recognize that I have to manage clients. I have to ensure their experience is good. That's a manager. That's an operator. That's making sure the parts are moving. Clients, you know, clients are getting what they need. They're getting what they ask for at the time they ask for it. That's a manager. And then sometimes I want to stand up in front of people and do the facilitation and run the training and run the workshops because it fills my cup.
So and so it's a facilitator. Sorry, if you're a facilitator though, which bit are you putting yourself in at that point? I'd say that's still employee. If you're
100%. Oh, 100% employee. That's the thing, is having the conversation about what you want the business to look like now in the future. And then as you go, recognizing that the roles that you take are actually fluid. There's no defined, you don't have to stay one or the other, as you said earlier. But what changes is not necessarily the work you do, but it's the way you view the work that you do and the conversations you have about that work. It's not about the physical work. So when I talk to our team about the, you know, from what we need to do to deliver a project, that's that manager operator level. When I'm talking to my clients, I'm talking to them as the CEO, as the person creating connection, talking about how the process works, what that looks like, how we will support you. That's elevating my conversation. And I'm not talking about, well, we use this system and that system. I just talk about what it looks like for them. So I'm connecting on a different level. So it's a mind shift, it's a language shift. It's also to some extent a posturing shift, right? I can sit at home on a Monday to Friday and, you know, coming home from gym, not get changed, work and do my business in my gym gear, and it doesn't matter. But when we're on Friday podcast, you put on your clothes, you put on your face, and we deliver, because it's a different conversation that we're having than we do, you know, sitting on our own, you know, working at midnight or working at 7 a.m.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So what would you say would be your top tip for someone, particularly those that are already in the trenches in the business? It's not a new business. So you don't have the luxury of deciding right at the very beginning, right, where do I want to head with this? How am I going to structure it? So for those already in the middle of it all and going, oh, what would be your top tip for, you know, where to go from here?
So I would be looking and saying, what are the things, if you're in the trenches, in the weeds, book half a day in your time, in your calendar. It doesn't have to be tomorrow.
CEO day.
Do your CEO day and actually sit down and look at what you're doing and find out and ask yourself, am I doing this in the best way for the business? So is what I'm doing, is it the most efficient? Is it most effective? Is it adding value to the business, or is it just busy work? So if what I'm doing is not adding value, then you don't need to do it.
Yeah.
That's the first question, is what I'm doing adding value to the business? If not, get rid of it or find somebody else to do it for you. The second question is to say is, what are the things in your business that you actually want to continue to keep doing because they do bring you joy, or there's great connection or synergies, like these podcasts? I'm never going to outsource these podcasts to someone else, am I? This is stuff that I love to do. This is ours, right? So what are the other things that I can give other people to do? But what do I want to keep, most importantly? But the biggest conversation that you need to have around the business is, what do you want it to look like in the future? And making sure you have the systems to set yourself up for that in the future. Now, one of the systems we use that allows me to shed most of my tasks is the Eisenhower matrix, is my do first matrix, which we talk about all the time because it allows me to plan my day. If it's above the line, so things that I need to do first or schedule, they're my things. If it's below the line, things that I need to delegate or don't do, they're not my business, they're not my problem. That's why I have a team and they do those things. So I might write the captions, but someone else will post them. I might do a podcast like this, but someone else will pull the content from this and help us create the blog. I don't need to do that because somebody else is able to. And me doing that and spending 3 hours editing isn't going to add value to the overall business, but it's an important piece of work. So the Eisenhower matrix, or the do first matrix, and we can pop a copy of that in the in the Facebook group to say, hey, have a look at the matrix, do that every day. That will start showing you what you can get rid of. That will show you how you elevate from just being in the weeds employee into a manager and then eventually into a CEO, because your tasks will change as you start to get rid of some of the noise in your business.
Monday morning is when I set up my Do First Jenni matrix and literally follow it for the week. It's brilliant. Sometimes it gets carried on and carried on and carried on, carried on. And then I go, actually, remember Jenni says that fourth quadrant, that's just got to go. So I think that's really important. So then I would suggest, if you were just wanting to, if you at the moment couldn't even take half a day out, if you literally sow in the trenches, sow in the weeds, that you're just overwhelmed, my suggestion would be grab a piece of paper and write down every single thing you do. Because it's always mind-blowing, isn't it? That it's so much bigger than you really realize. But trying to get structure out of that, then go with that, take that half day. You've got to set it aside and then figure out from there exactly those tips that you've shared, because that was magic. Thanks so much for that.
I just think the idea of scheduling your tasks as a system is not just about scheduling, it's about recognizing what are the things that are not, that you don't need to do. And this is that conversation we had earlier. What do I need to do or have to do? Because there is no one else in the business that can do it right now. And if I'm doing that thing and I go, you know what? This does not bring me joy. Let's do a bit of Marie Kondo. This does not bring me joy. So then say, okay, who does it want to bring joy to? Because it doesn't want to be me. So what does that look like? Who can you delegate it to? Who can you pass it to? Who's got that skill set or that and it doesn't have to be a full-time employee. It could be a contractor. It could be a virtual assistant. Like we have, my team, I had this conversation last week saying, I'm bombarding you with all this stuff. And they're like, that's awesome. We're loving this, because they're happy to do those tasks and I can focus on the things I need to write. I need to write the strategy. It's hard for me at the moment to outsource that, but we're looking to hire someone so that they can do that for us, so we can work together and build those skills. But right now, that's what I do, And so having that conversation early, as you say, and say, what don't I need to do? And what do I need to do to set my business up so I don't have to in the future? That's you designing your business structure. That's you designing how you want to run your business. That's you being a CEO in that moment, because you're planning about the big picture, as you said earlier, about what will my business look like? How will it continue to grow? And how will I keep enjoying the work that I'm doing and not get stuck in those weeds?
Yeah, love it. Love it, Jenni. Thanks for such a great chat. It's made me think Monday on my CEO day, I'm going to spend a little bit more time, because there's definitely more of mine that I can shift around. One thing I'm super proud of is I was having a chuckle when you were going, that's me, about thinking no one else could do what you do. I've known for a long time there's one aspect of what I do that I need to pass on. It needs to be someone here in Australia. English is a first language, for example, and it's a hugely time-consuming thing for me that I do as this task. So anyway, I've known I need to get someone in for that role. And but again, it's that, but they won't do it my way. So guess what I did? I've employed my daughter. Because it felt like the next best option for doing it my way. So she comes and sits in here for 4 hours at a time, or 2 hour stints. And it's amazing. It's taken me 2 weeks and she's just running with it exactly the way I wanted to do it. So I'm thrilled. So there you go. Sometimes it takes a little longer than you want it to find the right one. And then you're like, yes, nailed it.
And it makes such a big difference. I mean, that's all. You know what? It doesn't matter that it's not done your way. I know that. We all know that on some level, but our ego doesn't want to let that go.
That's right. Well, I feel lighter already, just that I've been able to shift that on. And she's right here. So, and she's at uni. So it's she has extraordinary English skills and writing skills. So I'm like, yes, why didn't I do that sooner?
I love that. So basically, choose your own structure is the summary of our chat today, people. Decide what your business looks like for you. Don't have to follow. You can look and do the research and see what other people call businesses.
Don't get bogged down by it.
But create one for yourself. That's the point. You know, that's the whole point of being a business owner and being an entrepreneur, is creating a world that suits you, not putting your body and your mind and everything else into somebody else's structure. Create it for you.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. That's our final words. Create your own structure. It's your business, not your hobby.
It's been so much fun chatting to you, and thank you for everyone who's tuning into this episode of Bite Size Business. We're really excited to have you with us, but make sure you subscribe and follow us so you don't miss any future episodes like the one we're talking next week around social media marketing and the great things that you need to consider for this year. So it's been such fun to talk to you today, Kylie.
Awesome. You too, Jenny. I look forward to it, and have a fabulous Friday and a great weekend.
And you too. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
Thanks so much. Bye.